Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you joined us today. I'm Catherine Pereira, a local food systems small farm educator serving Cook County, Illinois, which is Chicago and its suburbs. Three of my other team members will be presenting today, and they'll have a chance to introduce themselves. And we have a fifth one online with us, Sue Gasper. I know Melanie said that you could raise your hand, but I will not be able to deal with raised hands and answering questions on the fly while I'm presenting, but we're going to try and leave time at the end to answer questions. And with that, I'm going to turn off my video because we still experience some bandwidth problems here on the south side of Chicago, and we'll get to our presentation. So our project actually began back in 2020, and at the time, we were just thinking about revitalizing or bringing back our Cook County Master Composter program, which hadn't been taught in about a decade. We spent that spring and summer meeting and reviewing old curriculum and looking at other extension services programs and discussing really how we wanted to update ours for the 21st century. And the one thing we all agreed upon that we really knew is we just didn't want to manage another volunteer program. But we felt that people wanted the information. So in October of that year, 3 of those original team members attended the Extension Foundation Impact Collaborative. And it was after that our project really started to take off. So by the end of 2020, we had received a $5,000 incubator grant to host pumpkin smashes for Chicago residents. And these are events to introduce the idea of composting and diverting organics from landfills. And while we were doing this, we were sort of continuing to work on revamping our formal compost education program, which we eventually piloted in winter 2022. So in June 2022, 5 of us applied for and received the $60,000 expansion grant. And this support from Extension Foundation really inspired us to expand our work geographically, add activities and programs, and build some really impactful partnerships. So our big goal was to serve as a change agent, to start shifting attitudes and making composting as common as recycling. And it was and remains a really very big goal. Getting people to change their habits, like it isn't easy and it takes a lot of time. And ultimately we realized what we were needed to do was to change an entire culture. So what we set out to do with the expansion grant was to accomplish 3 things. The first was to expand opportunities for Illinois residents to learn about composting. And this we did primarily via those pumpkin smash events. Then we were looking to expand opportunities for small food businesses in communities that are more adversely impacted by climate change. And we did this by offering free waste audits followed by a trial compost pickup services. And then finally, we wanted to expand the conversation by breaking down barriers between compost professionals from different sectors and different municipalities. And we did this by convening a regional Greater Chicagoland Compost Summit. So this is a little timeline of what we've been doing, and a lot has been going on since the spring of 2020. In this chart, in the light orange, you're going to see all the Accelerator grant activities and some important milestones. One thing I want to note is that the grant began in September 2022, but our full team of 5 wasn't able to find the time to meet together until January 2023, and we didn't receive the money until early February 2023. Another thing about this timeline is that all the background and planning work for each of the 3 project components is not on this chart. Clearly, we didn't pull off a regional compost summit without months of planning, meetings, networking, and marketing prior to May. So you'll see the big things on here are pumpkin smashes in the fall of 2022. We had 5, and it was the first time working with a new partner from the city of Chicago. We had the pumpkin smash in spring 2023. We began rolling out services for small food businesses in the spring and summer of 2023. And then we really expanded our pumpkin smashes with having 10 in Chicago in 2023, 2 in the Cook County suburbs, and 5 in other units around the state for a total of 17. And then a final thing that we didn't plan for that happened as part of the expansion grant is we were able to use some remaining funds to build 3 demonstration sites in Cook, Lake, and McHenry counties. And throughout this time, there were reports, presentations, spin-off compost projects, like the 2.0 version of Compost Ambassador, which is our rebranded master composter program, and providing training and technical assistance for another project in Chicago called the Chicago Community Garden Pilot. So some of our successes, we felt like one thing that we did really well is we had success with geographic reach. Our initial goal was just to expand beyond Cook County to the counties that all touch Cook County. We call those our collar counties. And to begin this process, we brought in another educator, Sarah Farley, from our neighboring counties of Lake and McHenry. We did this also by convening the Greater Chicagoland Compost Summit with over 90 attendees from across Northern Illinois, not just the collar counties. And then in fall of 2023, I already talked about, we expanded pumpkin smashes beyond Greater Chicagoland as other Illinois Extension colleagues hosted their own events. In 2024, we're really hoping to expand to a few more units across the state and perhaps even to other extension services. So Purdue, if you're online, we've heard you're interested and we're really hoping that you all do it. So another place we've had good success is with our numbers. I've already said we've gone from 1 event to 17. At those events, we've engaged over 5,000 people and diverted over 100 tons of pumpkins from landfills, which is preventing the equivalent of more than 44 tons of carbon dioxide from being released into our atmosphere. And that's like removing 10 cars from the road annually. And in 2023 alone, we doubled our impact in just 1 year. Another success we've had with the pumpkin smashes, and this for me is a big one, we've been able to step out of the planning role and focus more on how to deliver education at large, fun public events. Initially, these events required intensive planning and coordination work. We had to hire and pay for a dumpster and a hauler, ensure they would take it to a compost facility, identify and coordinate planning with site partners, design marketing campaigns, recruit volunteers and staff, and it was a lot of cat herding. These days in Chicago, we're kind of off the hook with event planning, as well as hauling logistics and payment for that hauling due to the partnership with the City of Chicago's Department of Streets and Sanitation. I now deliver a single presentation on how to plan and host a pumpkin smash for Chicago sites wanting those free hauling services from the city. And I'll do the same for any new Illinois Extension site who wants to roll out an event in their unit. I have a resource kit with everything you need to get started for Illinois Extension. It includes the marketing templates, volunteer t-shirt template, Facebook graphics, event banner, compost fact sheets, and educational posters. So this partnership with the city has just freed up my time so I can focus more on developing new large format educational posters. When people attend these events, they don't want to stop by a table and talk about composting. They want to smash pumpkins. But when we put up these really large banners, people do read them. They do scan the QR codes, which go to Illinois Extension resources. And so it's been, the partnership has done just a great thing. So here in this slide is showing how new partnerships have created new opportunities and new connections. And it's showing how our work has expanded. So you can see us in the center in that little white box with the orange dotted line about it. And each branch represents a part of the project as it's expanded outwards. We have logos of some of our critical partners that have helped with this expansion work. So on the left, you can see Illinois Food Scrap and Composting Coalition on the blue line, and which interestingly connects to the purple lines to some master gardeners in Kane County, not part of our project team, who at one time sought composting education from Vermont Extension, but then found us through the Illinois Food Scrap and Composting Coalition. Down on the lower left, you see the pink lines from the Illinois Sustainable Technology Center and our partner, Zach Samaras. And on some teal lines there are little black and white logos from food scrap haulers we've hired to provide services for our food scrap diversion events. Those are different from pumpkin smashes. And because we did that, they offered us a big discount on services for the small food businesses part of this project, which allowed us to provide services for about 9 months rather than the 3 months we had initially planned for. And then eventually they provided us a discount code to give to our 2024 Compost Ambassador students. And then on the right in the orange and green lines, you'll see the partnership with the City of Chicago's Department of Streets and Sanitation. And it shows how it, really served as a catalyst for pumpkin smash expansion and brought us into a new partnership and a new project with the Chicago Community Garden Pilot, which introduced us to a new partner called Neighborspace. So we're going to dive a bit into these partnerships a bit more. And our first partnership we're going to highlight is with the Illinois Sustainable Technology Center. So Zach, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Catherine. Hey, everyone. Yeah, as Catherine mentioned, Zach Samaras here at the Illinois Sustainable Technology Center, often called ISTC. And we are part of the Prairie Research Institute at the University of Illinois. So also housed under the University of Illinois, but a separate group from Illinois Extension. So I work on our zero waste team on our technical assistance program. So my role in our team, we work with businesses and organizations all around the state and beyond on waste reduction and diversion. And if you didn't know, quite a bit of our waste stream is organics. So, a lot of my work focuses on organics diversion and composting. So it's a really nice fit into this project. This was the first time in my 4 years that I had worked with another U of I entity, and it really worked out really nicely. And I hope to be able to work with Extension and some other units of U of I kind of going forward on this effort. So ISTC's role in this Culture of Composting project was to work with small businesses. That's our bread and butter. We work with a ton of businesses on sustainability in general. And so this was a really nice fit for us. So I'm going to walk through a little bit what our technical assistance approach looked like, what some of the outcomes were, and then where you can find some more information if you want to learn a little bit more. So we started off our technical assistance approach with kind of scouring our networks and finding 5 small businesses that were interested in food waste reduction and composting. And we really wanted to focus on businesses that were in underserved communities, businesses and communities that may not otherwise know technical assistance exists, may not have, funding to start composting or know where to start, kind of help remove that barrier on food waste reduction in general and composting. So that was really our goal. Once we found those 5 partners, we start by doing a facility walkthrough. Well, I'll go to each one of these businesses. We'll sit down and talk about how they order food, how they store, serve food, how they dispose of food, and then look at the actual kitchen space and what those things look like. How tight is it? How many folks work there? Just what their overall process is. After that, we conducted a food waste audit for each one of these businesses. So that's where I was collecting 2 days worth of all the trash and recycling at each of these businesses and then sorting it. We sorted it into items that should be in the trash, items that should be recycled, and then organic waste. And when it was organic waste, we then looked at whether it was inedible, edible, or non-food waste compostable. So inedible might be some of the things we wouldn't typically eat, like bones and rinds. Edible might be plate waste if it was a restaurant, or something from the kitchen that spoiled and went bad and they didn't have time to use. And then the non-food waste compostables like paper towels, napkins, and things like that. So after we did that for the 5 businesses, we wrote each business kind of a little mini report where we'd give them the summaries of their waste audit, which, as you see on the slide there, about 61% of all the business waste that we sorted, waste and recycling, was compostable material. So a pretty big number, not one I was too surprised about based on some of the other waste audits that we've done, but I think was really eye-opening for a lot of the businesses and helped them understand how much food waste they actually have. So after each one got a little report, we'd run through it with them. It would outline some strategies, and we really tried to follow, you may be familiar with what's called the EPA Wasted Food Scale. We really tried to follow that hierarchy as to how we were going to provide recommendations. So starting with prevention, also looking at recovery and donation. And then a big one was everything left should be composted. So we kind of worked through those 3 tiers to help them reduce food waste to start with, and then at the end, compost anything remaining. So after getting that report, we worked on each one of them on implementation. So help them figure out which one of these made the most sense for them, and talk them through a plan to make sure they were going to be successful in implementing these. So the one that we were really involved in quite a bit was the composting. Catherine mentioned we were able to roll out composting with some of these businesses. So we actually presented these businesses with a couple different organics haulers to work with, and for a couple of reasons, they all ended up choosing Urban Canopy, which led to a really nice relationship working with the Urban Canopy hauler to collect all their food scraps. Urban Canopy was super helpful in onboarding and answering questions for all of them, and really make it a smooth transition to get going. So let's see, what else did I want to mention? Okay, so the QR code there goes to a case study that outlines this whole process, our technical assistance process, some of the graphs, highlights from the waste audits, and also outlines some of the challenges some of the businesses had, including physical space restraints. Some of these are super small businesses. And then the idea of making sure that more folks from the businesses, if it was a restaurant, not just the owner, was involved right from the get-go, and that they had a champion in place we learned was really important. So these are things I'll take into doing this work in the future, and I think they'll take into as, they can kind of learn from as they go. So I also wanted to mention that in my 4 years at ISTC, this project differed a little bit from our typical project and has really allowed me to expand my work and continue to find new partners. ISTC more commonly works with large institutions and large businesses, folks that are often coming to us for assistance because they know we exist, or folks that we're able to partner with through grants or otherwise. And we don't always get to work with these smaller businesses because, frankly, they don't waste, as many pounds of food as maybe a university or college or something like that would. So this really helped us kind of learn how to work with small businesses, which was a little bit different in a way. It was really rewarding to find out how quickly small businesses can implement something like composting or a food waste reduction technology that it might take a municipality, a university, a large manufacturing center months because of bureaucracy, red tape, having to get special approvals, find the funding. So it was really unique to work with these small businesses that are super nimble and flexible and able to make change quickly, and also that really have an impact in their community. A lot of their community members come to these restaurants, these social services agencies we worked with, so really get to touch a lot of community members through working with some of these businesses. And I have one more slide coming up a little bit later. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we are planning to expand some of this work and continue it. So Catherine, go ahead and go to the next slide.
Great, thank you, Zach. So as I already mentioned, our really big partner that was a home run for us was building this relationship with the City of Chicago's Department of Streets and Sanitation. Amy DiLorenzo and I began talking with them during the summer of 2020 when they released a new waste management strategy report. And in that report, they had the idea to also sponsor pumpkin smashes. So here in this picture is an early picture with Amy, with Chicago's recycling coordinator and the deputy commissioner of policy and sustainability during their first year of sponsoring our pumpkin smashes in 2022. So this partnership really, as I already said, allowed us to move from 5 pumpkin smashes to 10, saving us resources to support new events in the suburbs and the work of our colleagues around the state. The big headache, honestly, was hiring and contracting with haulers for the full dumpsters. We had headaches with bin placement, delivery and pickup times, and billing. I remember one year I spent the entire day before the event on the phone from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. tracking down the dumpsters, talking with our site partners, and that just couldn't continue. And so now that they've taken on that role, our life is a lot easier. As a part of that partnership, we built trust. And so in the winter of 2023, they asked us to provide education and technical assistance for another one of their projects, the community garden compost pilot. And that introduced us to a new partner, Neighborspace. We're currently talking with them to provide education for the city's home compost bin giveaways that we're hoping will happen this fall. Some other benefits include that the city supported our compost ambassador training this year by providing free backyard bins for students in Chicago. And then I think, and I'm going to say it, I think this relationship played a large role in making the mayor's wife aware of our programming and enrolling as a Compost Ambassador student in 2024. So a little bit about NeighborSpace. This is the new partner for us that came as a result of the partnership with the Streets and Sanitation. They had received money for a community garden composting pilot, and they partnered with NeighborSpace, which is a nonprofit land trust that secures space for community gardens and urban farms. The project was modeled on the Institute for Self-Reliance's programming on the East Coast, but the Department of Streets and Sanitation really felt there should be strong local technical support and training for garden leaders and garden members, and they brought us in to do that. So 2 of our project team members and 2 members of our larger Cook County Ag and Natural Resource team provided spring and fall workshops, visited each NeighborSpace garden at least one time during the season, and then provided free finished compost testing and an interpretation of the results. This interaction with the gardens and the people managing the composting sites allowed us, or gave us insight into where some knowledge gaps existed. Because this subset of people, they're people who considered themselves very knowledgeable and experienced composters, but we learned there were gaps and the things they needed to learn. So we were able to start develop some new fact sheets to fill in those gaps, one on compost usage, another on winter composting, with a few more under development. And then another big partner for us was the Illinois Food Scrap and Composting Coalition. They're the state chapter of the U.S. Composting Council. One of our team members had been a longtime individual member of this organization and suggested we try and involve and engage them in the Compost Summit. So we did, even hosting a joint happy hour after the summit. So we used our funds for that, and we used our funds to purchase an institutional membership into this organization and worked on becoming a trusted resource and colleague by attending and presenting at their member meetings, amplifying their marketing campaigns, joining committees, and participating in International Compost Awareness Week, which I sponsor in Illinois. And we ran our own educational social media campaign, and Sarah Farley up in Lake and McHenry counties hosted some free compost giveaway events during that week. So we're really looking forward to seeing this organization grow and become a really active and leading chapter of the U.S. Composting Council. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Farley to talk about sort of the internal partnership network she built within her 2 county units.
Thank you, Catherine. And hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Farley. I'm a local food systems and small farms educator based in Lake and McHenry counties, so just northwest of Cook County. Internal partnerships are critical to the success of a project, especially one like this one. And it was kind of nice to be able to align some work that I had already been working on with our Master Gardener team and also the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County and some other partner organizations, and learning about early on that we can work together across county lines and make our impact even larger. So in Lake and McHenry counties, I focused on creating internal partnerships by initiating a compost team network made up of extension master gardeners and horticulture program coordinators from each county. This year, we even expanded to include a 4-H educator to be involved. So this team of 12 meets monthly and discusses current compost-related programs and demonstration sites in our area, voice education resource needs, identify partner collaboration opportunities, and sharing knowledge through discussion and observations we're seeing out while actively composting. The network has resulted in cross-county relationships, tours, and extension of county demonstration areas, and participation in events such as our compost giveaways and assistance in Zach's waste audit, actually at a food pantry in our area. So this Collier County unit network demonstrates its intentional commitment to building a culture of composting in Greater Chicagoland, tailored to our unique suburban or peri-urban community needs. We just added in a little quote here from James McSweeney, who is an author of Community Scale Composting Systems, highlighting that networks don't just happen organically. It really takes boots on the ground, making things happen with vision and community leadership. So a lot of the work and momentum that we've made in our area has really been through leveraging these partnerships and the skill and passion of these volunteers and staff members to carry things out. Another thing we want to highlight as the success of our compost demonstration site is our compost demonstration site expansion. So during that carryover fund period, we had to shift some money and fill a need to build 3 demonstration sites in Lake County, McHenry County, and Cook counties. So these sites fall into our extension services wheelhouse as they showcase a variety of methods and systems to provide education and offer hands-on opportunities for people to become involved in the composting process. We also have a research component, and they're generally managed by a mix of our volunteers and us, the paid professionals. In Lake County, Illinois, our site offers hands-on opportunities for people to become involved in composting, mainly like the homeowner scale audience, and they could take that knowledge home and share that into their communities. In Lake County, we have a 3-bin Knox bin system, which is what you can see in the top right corner, which was thanks to this grant opportunity. We also have 2 single wooden bins, 2 fabricated plastic bins, 2 tumblers, a wire bin, a 3-pallet bin turning unit, and vermicomposting, a bin that could be used indoors or outdoors. And with this grant, we've been able to purchase educational signage and do plan to install that shortly. An example is this image in the bottom right corner. At our Cook County extension site, the focus is on modeling systems on the larger community garden scale and urban farms, how they might want to adopt the process with their garden waste and produce, and to produce enough compost to meet the needs for food production. Cook County has a 3-bin Knox system, the same system that I have, an in-ground vermicomposting bin, and a large mobile vermicomposting bin, also that could be moved indoors or outdoor. The newest sites in McHenry County, we actually have more than 3 total demo sites, but kind of one is more official in McHenry County. But again, these are used for education and demonstration purposes. Our Master Gardener volunteers have expanded their compost areas at 4 sites and have installed or plan to install some more of this educational signage and are actively composting on site. And at our network meetings on a monthly basis, we have volunteer compost leads give updates and share what plans they are to host educational tours at those sites. So the support of the Extension Foundation funds to secure the tools, the supplies, the signage really helped propel these demonstration sites forward. So I just want to say thank you for that, and I'll turn it back over to Catherine.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So we're going to switch a little bit now and start talking about some lessons learned. And the big one, it should seem obvious, but it really does take a team. The money, is just not enough to ensure success. It really helps, but it doesn't ensure success. So if your team is small, you might need to add more people. We increased from 5 to 20 people, all employed by Illinois Extension, to support the Compost Summit. And we wouldn't have been able to pull it off without their support. In this picture are just 13 of the 20 staff who supported the summit on the day of the event. We also paid for a professional facilitation team of 3 to help with the summit instead of doing it all ourselves. And I think we all agree across the board that this is probably the best decision we made throughout the entire project. It was just such a relief to have someone really helping through that. Another important thing is have that backup plan. People might get sick, family members might get sick, people get new jobs, people might be asked to take on unexpected responsibilities in their job that don't involve the project. Or maybe the position you thought you'd be able to hire for will fall through. And all of these things happen to us. And so it sometimes felt like we're always scrambling and improvising. And then finally, clarify your roles and team culture early in the process. I already said that it took us nearly 5 months into the project until all 5 of us could meet. And I think this delay really hurt us and didn't give us time to develop our own culture of how we'd work together. We just had to get moving with all the deliverables. And in retrospect, it's really struck me that we set out to change and build a culture of composting before building, changing, and solidifying our own culture. So now I'm going to turn it over to Amy for the remainder of the presentation, who's going to talk more about lesson learned and wrap it up with what's next for our project.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So now that you know some of these challenges that we've had on our team, we'd like to go into a little bit more detail about building that culture of composting while balancing that with our own institutional culture. And we ran into a few challenges that we'd like to highlight and see if they resonate with you and your team. The first is our culture of busyness. You know, we've all felt that push and pull to do more. And now that all of us work from home, at least some of the time, there is really this challenge to completely disconnect from your work. My office is literally in my living room. I can always see my desk at all times. So I understand this like very deeply, you know, and this can lead to burnout. And do not worry, we are definitely going to talk about burnout in a little bit. But the main issue was being able to integrate this project into our current workload. And this was difficult for me because I don't actually work for Illinois Extension anymore. I now work for the EPA. And for others, this work was an add-on rather than an enhancement to their current program offerings. So if you'll recall, we don't really have full compost educators on our team. You know, we have local food, small farms educators, we have horticulture specialists, we have STEM education specialists. And so in addition to having those full roster of programs that our staff, our team members had, you know, these projects were a little bit extra. It took some creative thinking about how to integrate them, as the programs kind of may have lived on the corner of their desk or something to get to after they do their regular, you know, scheduled programming as it was. So team members who were able to find ways to make this work enhance their current programming rather than, you know, be this extra to do, had an easier time justifying all this time that was spent, you know, on all the grunt work and cat herding and things that Catherine was talking about. We also struggled with institutional bureaucracy. And so this might be, you know, very unique to University of Illinois Extension because we have a University of Illinois system, right? So U of I system consists of U of I Urbana-Champaign, University of Illinois Chicago, University of Illinois Springfield. You'll not believe the time and paperwork it took to get from our program to UIC, where we hosted the summit. And it was just a lot of back and forth there. Transferring funds to Zach, even though he's part of the Illinois system, was, you know, very challenging, and it took way longer than we anticipated. And we also worked with the city of Chicago, which was a really successful partnership, but they're their own whole other bureaucracy that we just had to deal with. And so their requirements and things were kind of like, we were often in a situation where it's like, hurry up and wait. And the final thing that I want to talk about is that we really struggled with our expectations versus realities. So like I mentioned before, there was a lot of difficulty making sure that our regular programming was still covered and like humming along in addition to doing this work before turning to the tasks that this funding afforded us. And our busy time for reporting internally usually happens in November and December. People are filling out their end of year reports. Our training months are usually like from January to May. You know, we're doing like farms training and compost training and things like that. And so we had a lot of other expectations from Extension Foundation that had to fit into that cadence. The calendar, like Catherine mentioned, only kind of just scratches the surface of all of that. Okay, we can go to the next slide, please. So now that we've explored some of these challenges that we've struggled with, we are really excited to share with you and for you to share with us about some challenges that you might be facing with your team. So let's get real and talk about your teamwork challenges. Sarah's going to drop the link to the Mentimeter in the chat. And we really would like you to think about the primary issue that your organization or group faces when it comes to achieving, like, you know, harmonious teamwork. So maybe it's workload, it could be competing priorities, it could be multifaceted projects. That's kind of how we're thinking about this project, which has amorphous or conflicting timelines, multiple partners, bureaucracies, things like that. Maybe your team doesn't have enough money. maybe they don't have enough staff expertise or just not enough bodies. There could be a lot of different things that make it difficult to achieve harmonious teamwork. So I'm going to check the Mentimeter, and as we start getting some responses come in, I'm going to share my screen. Catherine, if you want to pause for a minute, we'll do that. All right. Capacity, skill set, respect. People are already overworked. Yeah, it's tough. My favorite, when I say favorite, time is not my favorite. I am an optimistic time person. I always tell my family and friends that my relationship to time is that if nothing goes wrong, then I have enough time. But that's not realistic life, real life. So I struggle with that. The bus will never be late, of course. Scheduling, hard to add new projects. Distance. Yeah, so if you work with teammates that are kind of far away, I don't have a car. It's hard to get around. Collaboration and consensus, I see. Yeah, so this is really good, or it's really good and bad at the same time. So we're going to save this word cloud. Extension Foundation is going to send it out following this presentation. What we're thinking is that it might be helpful when you embark on a new project to take this word cloud or even do this exercise and reflect on how you might be able to nip some of these problems in the bud, work with your teammate, have honest conversations from the beginning about the things that are stumbling blocks for you and your teammates, and then work collectively to kind of overcome those issues. Thank you for sharing with us, everyone. I'm going to stop my share so Catherine can start again. Awesome.
All right, thank you, Amy. And I think you're on for the next slide when you're ready.
Yeah, so I promised that we would talk about burnout, and here we are. So this picture is of our fearless leader, Catherine, and her most, I feel, grumpiest selfie. So we had some issues on our team where we had too much success. I think that's kind of like an oxymoron, perhaps. But because of this work, we now receive a lot of requests for meetings and presentations and resources. Our core team is really small. And like I mentioned, our members have lots of competing responsibilities. This is not their main day job. They have other things that they have to do. So we couldn't focus on our core strengths, which I'm going to speak about a little bit later. But these resources in cat herding and these need to plan multiple simultaneous events and a large regional summit were really time consuming. And they distracted from one of our core missions of education. And as I mentioned previously, none of us are compost educators as our main job. We are small farms educators and STEM educators and sustainability specialists with other things going on. And we have other things we're doing and other things that we need to do. So we're going to discuss a little bit later on how we envision this work becoming more fully integrated and elevated within our organization. But for now, just think about this little time watch and all of these little running people as our team members kind of running after all of the opportunities that we had. I'll turn to the next slide, Catherine. Thank you. Yeah, so what's next for our team? I think that we are thinking about what's next for all the different pieces of our project, and we're happy to share with you where we think that things could go. And of course, there's going to be time for questions and things like that afterwards. Each piece of the program that we've talked about today is in a different place, and what's happening with each of them depends on the funding and capacity of our team. So we're going to start with pumpkin smashes, since that was like the most kind of thing that got the ball rolling. In 2024, our plan is to increase participation and the amount of material diverted from the landfill. And we're kind of considering this year to be more of a planning or marinating type of year. And what does that mean? It means in Cook County, we're actively stepping away from hosting those smashes ourselves. And we've shifted, as Catherine mentioned, to a more train the trainer type model. One thing this Accelerator grant allowed us to do was to create professional looking pumpkin smash playbook that is meant to be kind of picked up pumpkin smash in a box style and used around the state to help other extension educators plan pumpkin smashes of their own. And like Catherine mentioned, we would love to see if other extensions are on the call. Pumpkin smashes can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to just be Illinois. So we're looking for you, Purdue, but we're also looking for others. And Catherine also really worked closely with the city last year to provide that online training about how to host a pumpkin smash. And so she's using this year to kind of refine the education and the posters and activities that will be accompanying those pumpkin smash events, because people come year after year, they want to learn new things, and it's always wonderful to kind of keep that information fresh. And as more education and research comes out about the value of composting and why it's important, we can update that as well. One thing that's really nice to note is that as a result of our updated playbook, Scarce, which is the organization in Illinois that founded the Pumpkin Smash, they've been inspired to update their playbook as well. And they've posted it on their website. And this is super important because Scarce is more well-known in the pumpkin smash world, and they have national reach. And last year, smashes were happening as far away as Florida. So we're hoping that we can work with them. We can kind of do some best practices around how the pumpkin smash playbook should look, and kind of getting that word out even farther than ever. Go to the next one, please. So we're not going to host another compost summit. Like we said, that was a lot of work, and we had to expand our team from 5 to 20 people. And we ended up having to also hire outside facilitators. But one thing that we are doing is keeping track of the people that came to the summit. We sent out just recently a year after summit questionnaire. And one thing that was so interesting about the summit, there was so much excitement around it because it was the first one that had happened in the state, or in this part of the state, since 2017. So of all of the participants that we surveyed, 82% agree that they're hopeful about the future of composting in Illinois. And if we go to the next slide, you can see some of what they said in their own words. We asked people exactly what they're working on, what connections they've made, what they're involved with now that the summit has occurred, and now that they've had time to kind of reflect on that process. Like I said, we don't have plans to host another summit, but we are definitely confident in our attendees' ability to stay connected with one another and keep pushing this culture of composting forward. I think what's really interesting to me is that, people might know about each other in this space, but they don't take the time always to really think outside the box of how they can make those connections. Everyone's kind of heads down. Maybe if they're in a garden, they're just staying in the garden. But the issue now is that this culture is growing, and people have that personal connection. People are starved for that personal connection after being away from each other for so long. And so I think that we're really getting to a point where if you make a connection in person, it's easier to sustain that, long term. So I'm going to hand it back over to Zach for a moment so he can talk about his update on what's next for that small biz technical assistance.
Thanks, Amy. Hey again. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's next for some of the small businesses we worked with, and then what's next for myself, ISTC, and our zero waste team. So after ISTC worked with these businesses and helped them early in the implementation process, the businesses, are now in charge of carrying this on themselves. So while we worked with them, we were able to get 4 out of the 5 of them composting. One of them we were unable to due to the location they were located in. We did not have one of the haulers that was willing to serve them. So we got 4 out of the 5 of them going. And since we stopped working with them, 3 out of those 4 are continuing composting, and I'm still working on the last one. They dropped off for financial reasons, and I'm still working on them to help them maybe with some other waste hauling costs to see if they can continue back composting it, which they would like to do if they can afford it. So overall, in the roughly, I think it was 10-month span that we were able to pay for some of these businesses to compost, there was over 10.5 tons of organics collected in compost that otherwise would have gone to the landfill. I believe there would have been more than that if we had not also worked with them on some of the food waste reduction and recovery aspects. One of the organizations we found in the waste audit, they were getting rid of a lot of prepared foods. They served these large family style meals to a lot of their classrooms. It was a social services agency, and they had a lot of untouched or partially touched trays of food that were coming back to the kitchen. Previously, this went to landfill, and instead of just composting this, we helped them think through a food recovery program. So now every single day the food comes back, and they're able to repackage between 3 and 10 meals a day that then go out to some of the participant families or some of their sister agencies that they work with for donation. So one of the things I want to touch on is that one of the other businesses has since opened a second location out in the suburbs. And he just called me a few weeks ago and said, "Hey, Zach, I'm opening this new location. Can we do the same thing we did? How do we start composting?" So, we talked through some of the ideas there, things to think about when opening a new location, some of the haulers that serve his area, so he could continue the efforts from his first location into a second location. We talked about some of those challenges that he meant. We talked about his first location, some of the space constraints, and bringing in one of those champions early on to really help it get kickstarted and going. So some of those lessons learned were already able to kind of recirculate into practice here. This was just a small pilot working with 5 businesses, but since then we've gotten a lot more interest from communities, from other businesses, from some of the partners that we worked with on how they can either do similar things, providing technical assistance, or how they can get some of their businesses in their community, their county, whatever it may be, the same technical assistance that we provided. So that's really exciting to hear. As far as next steps for ISTC, we have a lot of concurrent projects that were going on at the same time as this one and are still going on that I think are really going to help us expand the culture of composting. One with the Illinois EPA on talking with stakeholders, kind of following up on some of the work we did at the Compost Summit, working with Cook County Department of Health on food waste reduction and composting in some county buildings, hospitals, correctional facilities. And then we also have a couple big funding opportunities I'm super excited about to continue this work. One would help us expand food recovery and composting in the city of Chicago. One would help us do pollution prevention and food waste reduction in DuPage County, just outside of Cook County. And then another one that would help us with similar pollution prevention and composting implementation in central Illinois in the Champaign area. So, really building off the work we did, showing my supervisor and her supervisors what we were able to do in this project to really be able to go after some funding opportunities that may be a little bit different on some things that we had gone after in the past. So that's really exciting as well. And while I'm not going to say our project can take credit for this, since we started this project, I've seen several other similar route projects where entities in Chicago are offering subsidies to help businesses start composting. There's one in my neighborhood where there's some funding to get local businesses going for 2 months, really helping reduce that burden of signing up. Just what we were able to kind of show, started to work in our small pilot. And then there's another one in Chicago, very similarly, where they're doing technical assistance for a group of businesses in downtown Oak Park area, just outside of Chicago, and also helping them get started with composting. So, we're seeing these other type projects pop up that, I'm not going to say they read our case study and decided to start themselves, but just that idea of culture of composting. Maybe they saw a pumpkin smash, maybe they saw what we were doing, all of these things kind of snowballing to think, hey, we can do this in our area as well. So really awesome to see kind of the culture expanding. So through this continuation of work, hopefully we get some of these funding opportunities. I really hope to continue to focus a lot of my projects on organics, waste reduction, recovery, and composting. And I'm super excited to be able to continue that work kind of in Chicago and through the rest of the state as well. You can go to the next slide, Amy. Thanks.
So thanks, Zach. In addition to that, we want to talk about the rest of our team members. So what's next for them? I'm so glad that you asked. So for Catherine, instead of planning pumpkin smashes, she now gets to focus on producing that educational materials like we talked about for the events and figuring out how to best encourage more Illinois units and state extension services to host their own events. She developed and delivered 2 modules of Compost Ambassador in spring 2024, and she's happy to share her PowerPoints across Illinois Extension or even all extension services, if of course her team members agree. Catherine and Sarah Farley will publish a best practice guide later this summer on choosing your home compost system. And her mind is also turning on how to get more fruit trees in urban areas. Like Zach just mentioned, he and the ICC will continue to work on creating that culture of composting in Cook County and throughout the state of Illinois with these outreach and educational and technical assistance to food service entities. And with several funding opportunities submitted, ICC is looking to expand their reach in food waste reduction and composting assistance. So reach out to Zach if you're interested in that as well. Sarah's work is expanded primarily due to receiving more resources that helped her build excitement and energy as she created her own 2-county master garden compost team. I think all of those wonderful different types of demonstration sites are also so useful. I'm just gonna say those are great as well. Sue became aware of other approaches to doing compost education, and so she's going to keep working on how to educate others throughout all of Cook County on how to compost and through Compost Ambassador. And as for me, I'm going to keep working at the EPA and the Illinois Food Scrap and Composting Coalition, and I'm going to be keeping a special eye out for partners that Extension can partner with to keep building this culture. You know, they often, like I said, everyone has their head down, they're working on what they're working on, and they don't think to kind of always look across, you know, different mediums. I feel like, you know, community gardeners will reach out to other community gardeners, but they might not think to reach out to something like the University of Illinois system to help. And there's lots of natural synergies there. I think the University of Illinois participation in the community compost garden compost pilot program that the city put on was a really great opportunity for more interaction there as well. And so all of these reflections like helped us to see that the expansion of our networks and knowledge about others' work in this area could be used differently. And many of our team members, since this project has started, have joined Illinois Food Scrap and Composting Coalition committees to see how we can help strengthen that organization so that they can take on the work of building the culture of composting. And we can move into more of a supporting role by focusing on, go to the next slide, our wheelhouse skills of education, research, and demonstration. And so we understand that the ideas of partnership, action, and outreach are all part of spurring systems of change, but others can take leadership roles in those areas. So instead of just having those top 3, we have decided that we need a Prince Planet, which is a little bit close to Captain Planet, but it's a little bit older. And so if this work is to continue to expand, it needs to be someone's full-time job to work on all 6 of these things. The first 3 are great. We're doing great on those, but we really will be just sticking to those first 3 things at a limited level if we don't think about how having someone could be a full-time compost educator. So our recommendation for the future is to hire a person who can incorporate all the things that Extension is well known for, which is the education, research, and demonstration, and bring in new energy and time into creating partnerships, action, and continued outreach to partners that Extension might have previously missed, you know, in their previous work. And this was going to continue our big, hairy, audacious goal into Culture of Composting 2.0. It's not just going to help us adjust our internal culture where, you know, we were struggling with people not being able to put their full attention behind this kind of work. But it will also improve the external culture of composting in Chicago. And it's not just for people working on compost policy, and more. It can actually help serve our original audience that Extension was created for, which is farmers. Farmers can be educated on how to compost, how to use compost in agricultural settings, or just learn more different kinds of ways to be involved. And we're all going to have to deal with the effects of climate change. And so composting is a very powerful antidote to global warming. And so if this is important to Extension services, you need to have a full-time person dedicated to this work. Our Prince or Princess Planet is a compost champion within Extension services across the country, and they could be located at every state or within government agencies or legislatures. There's lots of opportunities for how this could go in the future. This is just one idea, but this is kind of where we're kind of, our thinking is lining up around this. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we're gonna leave you today with thank you for spending your time with us. We're gonna first say thank you and letting us share all the highs and lows of our project acceleration and expansion. We have a QR code to stay in touch. One of my colleagues is going to be dropping the link in the chat to learn more about how our compost work continues. And our final piece of advice before we have a time for questions is to have fun whenever you can. And sometimes, you know, we could be a little silly. It's healthy to have fun. We, or at least Catherine, recommends learning a dance move as a team kickoff. So here's one that we learned in 2023. It's only a minute long. So if you want to stick around and learn something new before heading off to your next Zoom meeting. Catherine?
This is Catherine. We might want to take some Q&A now and then play us out with 1 minute to go if there's any Q&A.
Yeah, sure. That's it. And also, please, yes, thank you. Melanie has been putting the survey in the chat. Please do fill out the survey to see what you want more of. But yeah, we're open for questions. You can just unmute yourself or raise your hand. It was so stunning. No questions, right? You just loved it. It was so great.
Pause. Thanks, Sarah, for putting the link in the chat. And like we said, we're sharing all the resources with Melanie and she'll send them out. So I'm all for ending meetings early. So I'm going to start the video, and this is just a fun way to have a good time with your meetings. So thanks, everyone.
Bela, Bela, não faz isso, Bela, Bela, não faz isso, Bela, Bela, não faz isso.
Hey guys, Izzy Odigia here again. Today we're gonna learn how to do the Bela. Shout out to my people from Angola. All you need for this move is good balance and lots of personality. Let's get started. So it's pretty simple. All you're gonna do is pick which side you want to put your weight on. Today I'm gonna be putting my weight on my left side, so I'm going to step back with my left leg while turning my toes in a diagonal direction. All I'm gonna do is lean back, keeping my back straight, and simply tapping forward with my right foot. My hands can be on the side, my hands can be up, my hands can be crossed, any way you want. All you have to do is just let's go. There you go, that's the Bela. So now that we have our Bela together, let's try it.
Não faz isso, Bela, Bela, não faz isso, Bela, Bela. Bela, não faz isso, Bela, Bela, não faz isso, Bela, Bela, não faz isso, Bela, Bela, não.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.